You are listening to the Home Service Business Success Show. We have been accelerating the path of success for home service companies since 2011.
This cannot fail. This will not fail. I will succeed. I am going to do this. This is not going to fail.
That's a growth mindset. It takes a growth mindset, and it takes hard work and dedication.
We don't make the same mistake twice. We're smart enough to know that, but not always smart enough not to make the mistake first place.
There's a blue collar tsunami taking place.
Did not use those words, but
Hey everybody, welcome back to Home Service Business Success Show. I'm your host, Kenny Chapman, along with co-host Chrew today. And today's a big day, man. We're super pumped that we've got a couple of guests here in Aaron and Darrell that really shows the longevity in this industry when you are great people that care about people and honor relationships as time and space changes throughout the industry, and how we all kind of get to look back after, many years. For me, 31 years now in this amazing industry, and multiple quote best practices and organizations and different things, and the relationships that have come and gone. And Chris, you and I, our listeners know a little bit about how we met. And today we have an honor of bringing in some guests that are big time supporters of us at Blue Collar, as well as being a dominant franchise player. And, let's just share some awesome stuff with our listeners here today.
Caveat, don't turn this one off. This one's going to be entertaining, I promise. The two people that we've invited in, you think entertainment's been good up until this point, wait until this episode right here. We have two of what I have told them before in another conversation. I truly feel like they could start their own television show. They're that entertaining. But I know you didn't come for entertainment. What you came for was value. And my friends, I hope you're ready for what's about to happen today. Kenny, if I could, let me just, Aaron, Darrell, how you guys doing?
Hey, doing great.
yeah, we're doing great.
No pressure. No pressure. Yeah. Darrell, you got to up your game up. I'm telling you. Right,
Darrell, don't worry. We're going to zoom right in on your face right now so that we can get that look of,
That's right.
of shock and awe.
Darrell is funnier than usual right now.
Well, let's talk about think about the tangled web of relationships. And I use the word tangled web, and you immediately go to like a negative. But when you think about a tangled web, you think about the strength of that web being very strong. And so as crazy as this is, two amazing operators have came together in what is unarguably, I would say, the largest privately owned franchise in the network. And so I'm super honored to say that that's not how things started. Aaron, you and I go all the way back. I'm going to call this to St. Louis, Missouri, and where you and I shared a stage at the very first ever Sales Confidential for electricians.
Boy.
And I remember at that time sharing that stage with you. Then I'm going to fast forward, and then I'm going to let you guys talk for a minute. Fast forward, Aaron, you would become a franchise. Some of our listeners know that I come from the franchise network as well. And I'll tell a funny story about that one. But that's where really our relationship really started to strengthen and deepen, where you became a customer. And then Darrell was another independent owner operator of a Mister Sparky in Washington. Welcome aboard, guys. It's good to have y'all.
Well,
Yeah, glad to be here.
yeah, no, it's an honor to be on you guys. I value your friendship like very few others, honestly. I've said this before, and I'll be real serious with this piece. And I told someone about this weekend, that Chris may be the best operator that's not operating right now, and operating that there is out there. I value our relationship, but I value the time that you speak into us. Absolutely. And we're able to pull just these amazing nuggets that you have for us every time that we talk. So It's been good, but it's more than that. It's a friendship, and it's been a friendship for a really long time. And I mean, it started like you said, we shared a stage. I've been when you worked at the Mister Sparky in Atlanta for Patrick Kennedy, the Godfather,
Oh, man.
of the electrical service industry, right? And you were there, and I got to meet you when you were working there at that time, and so it goes way back, way back for us.
That would be on my calendar. January the 3rd, 2005 was a defining moment in my career. It was when I went to work for the organization, and I just ran into, I'm actually in my hometown right now as we're recording this podcast. Just last night, I was at my son's track meet, and there was a Mr. Sparky technician there. And I just thought, man, the world is just so cool, right? It's like, so I got to have a great conversation. But fast forward now today, where two amazing operators are operating a franchise network, while yet I left that network. This is that web. I left that network and met Kenny Chapman. And Kenny Chapman is arguably my best friend in the whole world. He is the brother that I never had. And we get to do this podcast together and bringing on a similar bond,
Right,
with you and Darrell. Maybe if you guys could both maybe tell us a little bit about the relationship, how it got started, but I want to talk more about current today, and Kenny and I are going to peel that onion back.
Actually, we met in St. Louis as well, in a electrician on time class.
actually an ESI.
Yes, back in the
ESI
ESI
class
days.
back
Okay.
That's going way back in the files right there.
Yeah.
Around 07, right? And I saw this, this good looking guy up here. No, I wasn't that at all. We were in the class, just do what we normally do. Do what we normally do. And as we would talk and interact in class, a lot of what he was saying, I'm like, this guy really aligns with a lot of things that I believe in, want in my business. And little did I know, he was thinking the same thing when we were both interacting with the instructor at that time. And so we just decided to go out on a limb and ask each other out to go to dinner to talk. And
I like to tell everybody it was our first date.
There you go. There you go.
Makes him very uncomfortable when I say that, but it was our first date way back then.
I did not use those words, but and then from there, honestly, it went from that, we were so aligned to literally talking every day. Like from there, we literally started talking to each other every day about our businesses and what you were doing, what I'm doing. Hey, here's what I'm struggling with. Well, here's what I did about that. And then from there, it just blossomed and like you said, to the point where we knew one day we would probably connect, and we would be better together and to go tackle these things. Because like we like to say, this industry's tough, and that's kind of our motto and message. Like, it's not meant to be done alone, and you have some support out there and some people.
Yes. How have you guys navigated the, I believe, I don't believe in number ones and number twos. Like we talk about, people are like, oh, you've got to have a powerful number two, or, I got a buddy, Cameron Harold, that he helped grow 1-800-JUNK, right? And his focus is with what he calls second in command. I just don't, I love Cameron, but I don't buy anybody being a second in command. I don't buy a number one and a number two. I only believe in having two number ones that live in their world of what my mentor, Dan Sullivan, calls unique ability. Like, I cannot do what Chris Chrew does. There's no way on the planet. And for me, fortunate, I'm clear enough now at this time in my life and career and the human experience, I'm really, really good at about 1.5 things in the world. and if I can stick to those, then I can be a number one. But beyond that, I'm wasting time. So as you guys have scaled and grown and added locations and market and share, how do you maintain that kind of inclusion of each of you being dominant number ones in my world of how I see you guys, How do you manage that in your relationship with two strong personalities?
Well, I mean, first there's just total respect there, right? So I know, and I see Darrell as an equal, and this man is an amazing operator, like the best. There's no one that I would pick to work beside other than Darrell Boyd. Very, very talented at what he does, and us being able to come together. And I think we've said this multiple times. It's like where my weaknesses were, they were his strengths, right? And vice versa. And we've just kind of meshed well, and we have just a trust and a bond that we have each other's back, and we know that that's it. That we get I get to fool around, and that's kind of my character, to be able to poke fun, and I poke fun a lot at Darrell at his expense, and he trusts me enough to know it's just what it is, and we roll. Roll with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's true. Like, like you talked about with Chris, it's literally is the case. And I mean, we very rarely have, I mean, we'll have some differences occasionally, but we have, obviously enough respect for each other to walk through those very easily. Almost not difficult. And we're developed people. We've made time to develop ourselves. And so, he understands exactly what I need and vice versa. And I mean, it's rare that we're not on the same page. I mean, it's just very rare. So it's actually pretty easy.
Well, speaking of development, let's fast forward now. We're digging in the files of 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. Let's talk about your current business today, and kind of tell us a little bit about the humble beginnings, because everybody's going to go, as soon as you talk about your current business, they're immediately, oh, I can't do that. You don't know my market. Maybe tell us a little bit about kind of like, how did you guys get started to be the largest privately held franchise in the network?
Yeah. So it started out in 2009 is when we both bought. I bought a franchise in Rogers, Arkansas, which we call Northwest Arkansas. It's where we are today in this. And today there's a population of, you take 4 or 5 cities, put them together, and there's about 500,000 people that are here. Not a huge market. And back then, and it's been rapidly growing. And over 16 years, it was much, much, much smaller at that point. And Darrell bought in Olympia, Washington, which was
not a large market either.
Right.
Not at all. It's pretty small as well. Yes.
And so our connections back then were we were both struggling in small markets. We were trying to figure it out, and we could talk each other on a regular daily basis, talk to and just be vulnerable with each other, because we had that kind of trust, and that it was a type of friendship that we have built. And when you can do that, and you've got another like-minded person that's just positive with you, then man, you can do a lot of different things. But so we started in 2009, and I started in Northwest Arkansas. Like I said, it was a small market, and I think that's where my mindset was different. So I realized I was in a small market, but this was home. This is where I lived.
Yep.
But I had a much bigger vision for what I wanted to do, and I knew that I probably couldn't do that just in Northwest Arkansas. I didn't know how I was going to do it.
Hang on, wait. Put that down. Write that down, listeners, viewers. He said, I knew through my vision. And vision and purpose is a driving factor, not allowing circumstances and markets to dictate what you want to become. So keep going.
That's good. But I also believed that if you in anything in life, if you expanded, you needed to be successful in where you're at and what you're doing in that area before you decide to be able to move on. I felt like I needed to be able to understand what I was doing and become somewhat successful in a small market before I could start moving into other markets. And so gradually we bought other markets, bought into other markets. Our first market that I moved into was in Oklahoma City, is in 2013 that I moved in there, and I was scared to death because there were no other examples that I could find out there of people that were opening locations in multiple markets that weren't, they were open multiple locations in one market, but not doing it in separate markets. So I didn't have someone to go look at and to be able to learn from. And it was a true learning, but there was a ton of fear in there. And it was one of those kind of things I remember the driving back and forth, because at that point, I would spend 3 days in Oklahoma City and come back, spend 2 days in Northwest Arkansas, and spend 3 days the next week in Northwest Arkansas, and then 2 days there. And that's how I did it for a while, because I was scared to death I was going to screw something up and I was going to lose it and I was going to fail. And I remember driving back, and it kind of gives me chill bumps telling the story, because it's that real that I would go like, this cannot fail. This will not fail. I will not fail. I will not fail. I will not fail. I will succeed. I am going to do this. This is not going to fail. And that was the mindset. It's just, this will not fail. This cannot fail. We will not fail doing this.
So
that's how we approached it.
So let that land, everybody. A couple of things. Chris tied back to the vision that was mentioned, as well as I want to touch on, because I was also an operator in a small market, and I had my buddies in Denver. I was in Western Colorado. 95% of my revenue came from 85,000 people. And I just was like, oh my gosh, this is such, poor me, was some of my thought when I first, joined Contractors 2000 and 2001. And I was like, everybody's got population. I don't have and I was that person that was like, you don't understand my market. And that was true because I believed it. And then as my belief began to shift and began to evolve, I realized one of the greatest things that happened to me was I was in a small market because I had to get dominant, and I had to brand, and I had to direct the same mailboxes over and over. And it worked really well. And then I started seeing buddies in Denver and Chicago and Atlanta and Philly that could just go to another zip code and add that one to the direct mail list. And they really diluted their brand and their messaging and their their ability to grow. So I want to make sure, listeners, what we're going to is, regardless of your market, I'm a fan of treating it like a smaller market than it is. And I think that, penetration, going deep rather than wide to a certain level. And I'm hearing you guys say that as you go into bigger markets, and as you've gone, do you kind of bring some of that small market mentality with you, even though you might have bigger population?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the coolest things about being a franchise, and honestly, we're just figuring this thing out. Like, we knew it was possible back in the day, but like I said, now that we've done it 9 times, we get a little better, every time.
9 times. That means 9 locations.
That's
Yes.
right.
Yeah, 9 different locations. I think we're in like 10 different states. Correct. Some of them cross over at that point, but it's all over the place. But we started getting a little bit better. One of the things that we've learned is we're utilizing the other brands and areas. So so relationships completely matter. Like for us, we're a Mister Sparky. So there's a 1 hour, there's a Benjamin Franklin Plumbing, in a lot of these areas. And the relationships that I've built, for the last 16 years have now come full circle. And now I can go into those places and say, hey, we're looking at opening this up. Can we work together?
Mm-hmm.
And, we're able to go in and work together. And to that, we're able to spend a whole lot less on marketing, opening up, because we have relationships in those areas, and we can start utilizing that from the very beginning while we're waiting for some of the other marketing. But to your, to your point though, absolutely. Right now, if we start in a market, in a brand new market, we believe that owning where we're at. So where our trucks are driving every day. So we make it a big point of where we're going to place our office, in that spot, because that's where our vans are going to be coming in and out of.
Right.
So we want it in an area that we want to be able to service. So we're looking in those areas, and these are the great service areas. So we're looking in those areas, and our guys, we'll pick a subdivision out and we'll say, okay, we're going to hit this subdivision. I want you guys just to drive the vans a couple of different times through those subdivisions. We're hitting them with direct mail in those areas, and we're doing the things that you would in a small market, because it makes a difference. It's how you those guerrilla type things that you can do make all the difference in the world when you're needing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 calls, whatever it is, to be able to get yourself going.
Interesting. All of a sudden, our conversations have started talking about big picture thinking.
That's right.
And when you big picture think, you see a brighter future. Kenny, you and I talk a lot about this. My goal in my life, and when I met Kenny has been an amazing enhancer to my perspective about what is possible. And Kenny is always ingrained in me, Chris, you've got to make your future bigger than your past. You've got to always be thinking about, how can I make my future bigger than my past? And that's a growth mindset. It takes a growth mindset, and it takes hard work and dedication. And so maybe tell us a little bit about your 9 locations and the role that you and Darrell, like, how does all this recipe work for you guys?
Obviously, we're not perfect. We screw up, plenty of times. Obviously, we learn the lessons as well. That's just what you'll notice is we don't make the same mistake twice. We're smart enough to know that, but not always smart enough not to make the mistake in the first place. But yeah, no, it's been like you said, 2013, Oklahoma City, from there over into Tulsa. And I mean, it's just become much bigger than what we set out to do. We didn't really realize it was going to become what it is, but we just love building things, like I say. So growth mindset, that's one thing. We were talking even before this with Kenny, and he's like, you guys done? You got more plans? Like, we're always going to have more plans. We're always thinking about more locations and growing to say how big we can build it, how we can continue to change lives in new markets.
It's fun. It's exciting. Our team, draws from that excitement as well. So, our direct leadership team, they draw from that. Now they get excited about where we going next. What are we doing? And even to the point, like our grader team. So every year, just to kind of give you an example, we put on a really big, like, Christmas awards gala, so we fly everybody in, drive them and fly them in if we need to. And from every location, along with their spouses. So all the techs with their spouses come in, and we just have this huge party. And we invest a lot into that. That's
a massive investment into your culture, though.
Massive.
It really is. It's been a huge win for us. But this past year, so we always like to have fun. If you like, Chris, I don't even know if we've shown you some of the stuff we did from this past year, but so we add skits into a lot of stuff we do. So Darrell and I will tend to make fun of ourselves so that we can kind of open people up and they can receive us a little bit more, know we're real, and that kind of stuff. So we'll have a little bit of fun with that. But so we also make our leadership team do the same thing. So yeah, listen, we're gonna have fun. So you do this, and so we had 2 guys that are part of our leadership team. They now are kind of emceeing our Christmas party, and they've just got these great personalities. And they came out and they started our Christmas party as Cousin Eddie and Clark Griswold. So Cousin Eddie, he comes out with this bathrobe, and then the hat, and everything on, and we had
mug,
and then we had the Clark Griswold had the Chicago Bulls hat and the Chicago Bears hat and the Blackhawks jersey, right? So the Blackhawks jersey came out, and at this point, Darrell and I are just sitting at a table together with our wives, and we have all these other techs and team members that are all sitting around us. And I heard someone from a table behind us go like, "They're open in Chicago. They're opening one in Chicago." Always looking and trying to figure out the guy come out in Chicago gear, like that's it.
Next?
We're going to Chicago now.
What's next? That's
they expect it. Last year at the Christmas party, I announced that we're going to open in Wichita and Omaha that year, and had a big deal and talked about that. And so they were just waiting. Everyone's waiting, like, how are they going to do it? How are they going to announce it? Yeah. But no, we did not open in Chicago. We're not going to Chicago.
I think, Chris and I are so big on culture, and everybody that follows the show knows how important I believe, people should be on the balance sheet. I think it's the most important asset that we have, bar none, period. And I just want to remind everybody listening or watching this that, when I wrote the Blue Collar Success Laws, law number 1 is authentic abundance. And I want you to hear the authenticity that Aaron and Darrell are sharing here today and having a good time. And if you're listening to this, do yourself a favor and go just grab the video to at least take a look at their studio of what we're looking at, because you just can't. Branding is everything, everywhere, all the time. And so I'm just going to leave it at that. If you're listening, you got to go grab a snapshot of how we all look today as we're doing this. And so we were, when it comes to, nothing happens without sales, right? And so 9 locations, you're responsible for generating revenue and so on and so forth. And before we started recording today, we were talking a little bit about, different focuses and different shifts and whatnot. For our listeners, Darrell, you had mentioned that like average ticket had come up as hey, we're kind of need to focus in on zeroing a little bit. Could you share with our listeners a little bit about like what was an indicator, or why did you know, or when is it important for people to be mindful of an average ticket? If you're experiencing growth, you're adding locations, sometimes keep, one things I love about Chris Chrew is he always says, keep the main thing the main thing. And I love that. And average ticket's a main thing, and it always has been, and it always will. But sometimes people get intoxicated with top line sales in other ways. How have you guys kept that a focus as you've grown?
Yeah, I think over the last couple of years, honestly, like I said, we share a lot of vision together. We talk a lot, and we saw kind of the trend in the economy going the way that it was, or at least we felt like we knew the direction it was going to go. So we knew a few things that were going to be important. That was keeping our call volume up, and then of course increasing that average ticket. So in regards to the average ticket, we're like, okay, how can we focus on that then, and keep and raise our average ticket? And we isolated down to 2 or 3 things that we could train with our guys to do that, and we felt confident in that we could do that. One of the ways is obviously training. We do a ton of training every day. We have a training day. Investing in blue collar was another way that we knew we could move the needle. The second way was we were going to increase our percentage of financed revenue. Aaron had some numbers that he'd saw from HVAC companies, like, hey, we know that they can get up to 50% plus of their revenue financed. We're about 20%. So we are going to increase our finance revenue to 50%. And we had a goal of that year to get that up to the 50% mark. And another thing, we were running at that time, give or take about a $1,500 average ticket, and
across the board,
across all 9 locations.
That's impressive. Let that sink in. 9 locations being operated from Northwest Arkansas. Your furthest location, is it Salt Lake City, or is Phoenix further from you?
Probably Salt Lake. Phil's the furthest.
That's the hardest to get to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want you to hear the impact that leadership makes in an organization of sales across the country. Like, this is not all just in Northwest Arkansas. You said average ticket across the board.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah. Some locations obviously are much higher, but across the board as a total, 1,500. And we're like, we need to get that up, or we're going to work on getting that up. So that was one measure, was that. And then of course we worked on bundling some packages and some other things and how we presented. And what we know now today is, as we sit here a year later, we're just under 50% of our entire revenue is finance, number one. And then our average ticket has expanded to over $2,000 across the board because of it as well, of those initiatives, and just, focusing on so.
Well, you can look at going, we had a financed average ticket. So any job was financed. Our average ticket on that was like $6,000 before. today it sits at over $10,000 is where it's just what you can do when you focus on something. And you know what Darrell didn't say is the training was very intentional that we said. We didn't just say, hey, we're going to go out and we're going to do, we're going to go out and we're going to go from 23% finance revenue to 50%. Everybody, rah, let's go.
Here we go. Yay.
Yeah. No, we put a plan together on how we're going to get there. We put training together, make sure everybody completely understood what financing meant, how they could explain it, that they were very comfortable with explaining it. Because most of them will find out, and everyone listening, smaller shop, bigger shop, you have guys out there that aren't financing. They aren't financing because they don't, number one, they don't understand it, and they'll feel silly trying to explain it to a customer. So they're not going to do it. So we knew that was a barrier that we had to cross. We had to get over that. So we put a lot of training in, hands-on, looking at it, grab your iPad. Here's where you go. Everyone do it. Learn how you do it. Here's what happens. Here's the next process when you get a decline. Here's what you do with that. And going through all of that. And that has been an ongoing that we're still doing today to try to get it better. And we're going to continue to get that better.
Yes.
Yeah. That's gold right there. What I heard was intentionality. That's what I heard.
That's exactly the word I was going to use.
Intentionality around growing sales, Kenny. And then he said intentionality, and he said that alone wasn't good enough. He said we had to have a plan, and then we had to train people. And so extremely high level operators executing. That's what I see. Small shop, medium-sized shop, plumbing, electrical, heating and air doesn't matter. Everything they're sharing is super universal.
Well, and remembering, regardless of where you are in your own journey, I was having lunch with a buddy of mine that runs a company here in Phoenix that's the largest single location geographical business in the United States. And I was having lunch with him, and he said, all I'm doing is running $55 million shops. And, and when you think about that as, where you kind of chunk it down, when you really get back to the basics, and yet what you're hearing everybody is massive vision and intentionality, as Chris said, but then chunk down into, okay, well, that's great, but we've got to do something today. And you also heard both Aaron and Darrell say, and it's continuing today because we're going to keep getting better. So what you're hearing is big vision. You're hearing big execution. You're hearing humble people that are going, hey, we're gonna mess it up. Like I believe in, I have two beliefs. One, I don't believe in failure. I only believe in results. And two, I don't believe that the universe makes mistakes. And I've been to jail, ladies and gentlemen, so I could say I've made mistakes, but I don't believe that the universe allows that, because I wouldn't be who I am had I not had every bit of that walk and every bit of that journey. And so where you are when you look, don't look at these guys and go, man, that must be nice. I'm not wired that way. I don't have that. You've got a unique operator DNA within you. And that's what we're trying to do, is help you see that, realize it, and then take massive action, because it's not going to happen on its own. You got to get in the game. You got to go make it work. And what does that mean? You're going to make mistakes, and you're going to learn as you go. And I think it's so important. And I appreciate how open you guys are sharing today. It's just magic. It's just gold.
Let's put a point of reference in for those. When you guys were only in Northwest Arkansas, if you can recall-ish, what was your revenue at that point before you guys ever started expanding? Do you recall about how much revenue you guys were at?
I think so in 13, I believe when I opened up the Oklahoma City shop, we were right around 1.2 to 1.5 billion at that point. We had crossed over the $1 million. But back then, that's what it was. Like I remember having conversations and going like, if I could just, $1 million shop, if I could get to $1 million. I mean, that was a big deal for us back then to get to that. it was a lot harder to get to that first million than it has been,
Yeah.
you know, to hit some of the other milestones that we've hit.
I've heard that said before, Kenny. Your first million's always the hardest. That's what I've always heard. The first million's always the hardest. But once you kind of find the million recipe, it's like you break through the ceiling. Bring us up to today. It's early 2025. Where are you guys at? Where is Mid-America Mister Sparky at from a revenue standpoint? Actually, back up. Where did you guys finish 2024 in? Electrical service only, by the way.
Electrical service. Go ahead, Darrell. I'll let you say the number.
Just under 43 million. So yeah, 42,890 somewhere in there. So just under 43 million.
And what's the plan for 2025?
Yeah, we're not messing around either. The plan's 60.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's crazy, Chris, because Aaron and I were just talking. Again, you have your head down working so hard at times you don't even realize some of the things that you do. 2 years ago we were at 21 million, and we were just talking recently, and in 2 years we doubled our revenue from 21 to 43 million in that time frame. And again, in the two,
it goes fast, and think how hard it was to get to get the freaking $1 million. At that point,
right. And so how do you guys navigate? I remember I reinforced a limiting belief for a lot of years within myself, and that was that, we've all heard the Roger Bannister story, the first 4-minute miler. And I always said, for years, I said, I'm not Roger Bannister, but I'm one of the second or third or fourth guys that ran the 4-minute mile. So when I joined a national group and I met a Patrick Kennedy back when, I remember when Patrick broke 20 million, it's like, oh my God, that was the largest company in the world of electrical service only. And, it was like, if I see somebody else can do it, then I can go do it. And yet that was such a limiting belief, because I've got to do it my way, my style, my culture. When I founded Blue Collar, it was because there wasn't what I wanted in the marketplace. Yeah, I was a lead trainer. I built tons of content for other organizations and things, but it wasn't being my part of a Roger Bannister. So Aaron, when you said I went to Oklahoma City and looked around and went, I don't have a model anymore. Like how have you guys shifted from watching and learning to being the ones that are being watched and learned from as you continue to make your future bigger than your past?
It's a great question. And I still remember those things. So we reminisce and we talk about, I don't want to forget those feelings. You know what I mean? I don't want to forget those feelings of what it took to be able to get there. I don't want to ever take it for granted, of what it took and how hard it is for these guys coming up. What we've done, we've done something pretty unique. We've started mentoring smaller companies. So, and it's just something I'm passionate about today. It's been a lot of fun. Last year we had 4 or 5 companies that we brought in, or the year before last. And last year we had another 4 or 5 that we've had in. And like I said, we're learning to get better at doing that as well, how to help them. But it is such, not just for me and not just for Darrell, but my team that gets involved in doing that and helping my direct leadership team helping do that. I mean, it's so fulfilling to be able to help and be able to do those things. We have grown. We have gotten more. My team has gotten more. We've gotten better by doing that piece than we would have if we weren't doing it. And so, and I'm proud. I'm going to brag them. The group that we had this year, I gave them the title that was going to be next level. We're taking next level. And so we took about 4 different shops, 4 different companies. They had the foundation, they had trucks running. They had trucks running at that point. They had understood, the process a little bit. And then we were there just trying to help them through. Every one of them had at least, so we have a award that they give at our franchise level for, it's called the President's Circle. And it's if you have 10% growth and 10%, Bottom line. So you got to have 10% growth over last year and have double-digit profitability at that point. My entire group, every one of them, we're a part of the group.
Yes.
Part of my group was Rookie of the Year. You know, this company came in, it was Rookie of the Year. I was so proud. It was like a proud papa, you know, sitting there cheering from the seat, doing that. And so it is super fulfilling. So that's something that helps us stay real. And that's that they say, you guys haven't forgot what it's like, you know, to be, you know, the small guys. Like, no, we don't want to forget what that's like. We live it all over when we start a new location. Like, we get it. Like we've done it, you know, we keep doing it all over. So we have a lot of practice.
I know that we want to focus on expansion, growth, and sales, but I don't want to necessarily get on this topic, and you can share as much as you want, but everybody's going to make the assumption that growth is what the most important part is, but let's not grow at the expense of not being profitable. And it's just a very direct question. Are you guys running a strong bottom line?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
And definitely yes.
You know, and I want to, you know, some people have heard me talk about there's a blue collar tsunami taking place where I believe we're at the beginning of a class shift in this country. And the blue collar class is going to replace the white collar class as the elite class in this industry. And I'm not against, I spoke against white collar for quite some time, but I believe that what I mean by a class shift is where the wealth lies and where the power lies. And we've been kind of the stepchild industries for so long. That's changing now. And I want everybody to realize that our guests today are an instrument of that change. When you're able to grow and care about your people, think about how many of you right now that are running 4-truck companies and looking at your income statement go back to December when you looked at your income statement last month in January or whenever you're listening to this, and you see the Christmas party land. And you're like, damn, I don't know if we cut that out, you know, we might be able. And yet you're hearing guys flying people in and, you know, doing different things and investing in the culture. And that is what's making the shift in this industry so incredible. And I'm so honored and so grateful to be a part of and be an instrument in where we don't want just our leadership teams to win. We want our newest apprentices to win. We want people to be able to take care of their families and find a work-life balance. And sure, there's some seasonality, and sure, there's some things that we sign up for. You know, when I joined the Army, I knew I could go to war. I didn't expect it to happen, but when they shipped me, I went, yeah, I guess I signed up for that. Well, when you sign up in the trades, there's some things you sign up for, and sometimes you're on call, and there's some of those types of things. But you know, what an honor for our listeners to be able to have your energy and your truth and your wisdom and your authenticity shared with them today. And Chris, thank you for making this happen today.
Oh, I'm just super grateful to share this time. I personally work with Aaron and Darrell, and I get this opportunity on a very regular basis to have this, and to work with your friends on a business level is just, words can't describe it, but to have this time today with them has been just so massive for me, from a deepening of a relationship. But you learn so much more respect for people the more you hear them tell their story, and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I remember that. And then it brings me back to humble beginnings as well of being in the industry and getting started and doing that. I want to ask one final question separately to each of you for our audience. What would be, either, I'm going to let you choose, dealer's choice, either the most valuable lesson you've learned in business or a single statement that you would like for them to leave with? Either one, most valuable lesson you learned individually, or a single statement of like, listeners need to hear this from me.
So can I do both?
Heck yeah, man.
Yes,
we're all about that.
Both. All right. So I've learned that grit is one of the most important things to having success, because failure is going to happen. Failure is going to happen. If you're not failing, you're not trying. You're going to fail. And what you learn from failure is just unbelievable. We are going to fall down. We are going to fail. We haven't talked a ton about but there are so many different fails that we've done, that we have messed up so bad, or that things have happened to us that we've had to bounce back from. It's the fact of going like, next, we're going to move on. Okay, I learned from that. That sucked. I don't want to do it again, but it's not going to stop me. This is not going to stop me. We're going to keep heading forward and keep telling myself that. So that for one, like, man, get gritty, learn what it is to have grit, and understand that it's not over when you fail. And when you feel like you're about to fail, or you feel like you're failing at that point, it's just a mindset. It's a shift in the mind to be able to put you in another place. It's so huge. We could have been done so many different times, and it'd been really easy for us to throw in the towel and say like, okay, that's it. I'm going to go back and run someone else's shop for them. You know what I mean? At that point, and not be here today at that point, and don't quit. So the other piece I would say, and this comes from Jim Abrams back in the day, what gets measured gets improved. What gets measured gets improved. Know your numbers. Yes. Understand what your numbers are every single day. Let your people know what their numbers are, so that you can continue to improve on that. If you measure it, you can improve it.
Oh, heck man. Yeah.
So
Darrell, how about you? Any final thoughts on that?
Two things that come to mind for me is urgency. Like I'm an urgency kind of guy. So like the urgency needs to match the need. And I would say not enough people have the right amount of urgency for the need that's going on. So for me, that's where I live at on that one. And the other one I would just say is the culture piece. Like, as you know, Chris, every day we meet with every single one of our techs across all locations. It's all done via Zoom, but every morning we have a group huddle. It's always been our plan and our purpose to keep it a family feel, even though we're, the size we are today, whatever. And we still, to this day, know every single person's name. We have a nickname for every single person. And at the end of the day, this is a people business.
Yes.
I agree with that. And I've sat in on one of those meetings, by the way.
Yeah.
What do you feel is the funniest? And we don't need to hear backstory, but what is the funniest nickname that all your people have out of all your team? Because I've heard you call them out in these meetings when I've been on site before. What do you feel like is the most intriguing or most unique nickname?
Yeah, I think the one we have the most fun with is the whale. We call one of our guys the whale. I'll leave it there.
We will get that name, right? But we won't talk about how that's the name. But yes,
there you go.
Thrown into now where somebody's got to give a whale sound every time we call it name. Somebody's got to do a whale sound. And
oh man,
so part of that meeting, we go through and hit the guys that have hit whatever that Mendoza line for the day before is. Everyone that was above that daily number. Above that, they get a shout out. So we go up the list. And so that's how we start calling out nicknames. And so every time we have a well sighting, we call a well sighting, we have to pick the guy. And this is Darrell, is brilliant. The guy that is the first guy that's just below the Mendoza line, didn't get his name called. He's the guy that's got to do the well sound that day. And so who knows what a well sounds like, right? So it's hilarious. It's become a really fun.
And having fun. We sing them out, in the mornings, but
it is. That's hitting that energy. That's impacting the culture. You're so right. This is a people business. Electrical services just happens to be what you're offering, and just improving people's lives, improving customers' lives across the board. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, Home Service Business Success Show. Aaron, Hagan, Darrell Boyd, thank you guys so much for your heart, your soul, your energy, your openness, your vulnerability, your sharing today. Ladies and gentlemen, do yourselves a favor, share this episode with somebody in the industry. because this is exactly what this industry needs. We come from abundance. We come from love. We come from wanting everybody to be better. And our guests today have made that happen. I'm honored. I'm grateful. Chris, thank you. Aaron, thank you. Darrell, thank you. Everybody, we'll see you very soon. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you, guys.